Greetings and welcome back to From the Depths, Dapplings. This is the Vehicle Designer, and I am working on a vehicle. We have got, let me move my mouse a little bit there, it was straying onto my second monitor. We have got ourselves a bit of a skeletal design for a ship. Now, I often find that building with a very simple sort of template, well, not really a template, but a skeletal outline of what I'm going to be working on really helps me sort of. It's like having lines when you're coloring in. It's easier to it's easier to color within the lines if the lines are actually there. It's remarkably hard to color within the lines if the lines are invisible. So I like to put some lines down before I begin on a build. But this is going to be a new ship. Now, at the moment, I've got an idea for it to be a cannon ship, but going along with my original idea of just building hard points into my hulls, and like building the hulls in the vehicle designer and then leaving that for the rest of the campaign to flesh out, we're not going to be adding in the weapon systems themselves, just adding in the overall shape to the vehicle. We're going to want wooden blocks around here just to finish that out. And then along here, we'll have the actual ends, I think. Something like that. This will be the overall shape of our vessel here. And I'm actually really quite taken by this design so far, honestly. There's going to be a lot of work filling all of this out. But let's start with some of the more immediate concerns. All ships need an engine, and I don't mind building that in the vehicle designer. What I'm not going to be building is the weapon systems themselves. We're going to be adding hard points for that. But I've got an idea. The engine will be probably at the front of the ship. As a bit of a change of pace, we're going to put it out here instead. So let's get a bit of shape going in this area. I'm thinking of having this clad in metal, but largely be made of wood. Just for the sake of keeping things a little bit simple. We'll have the engine block. We'll start the engine down on this side, I think. There we go. And then build this out. Now, I never remember how far along I need to take these. You know what? I believe I actually have a prefab of one of my better engines. Oh, actually. To be honest, this is probably more power than we need. Much more power than we need. But, okay, we could, I suppose, that would allow us to have some very powerful shields on this ship. That would be nice. For a cannon ship that's meant to be engaging as a sort of frontline fighter, a brawler, if you will, that would be very useful. Okay, let's place that down and see how this goes. Right, I am not entirely sure how much power we've got. 8,000 power from this. It's about as efficient as I can make an engine. That will be more than good enough. We'll add a little bit of resources to it. Fuel processor. We don't need the mirror line here. We don't really need much in the way of fuel storage tanks either. Honestly, one will do. That I've found, one single tank will take care of it. If it's an efficient engine, it's going to be burning through the fuel so slowly that one fuel processor will fill up one tank. You're never really going to run out. So you'll be more than happy with that. Now, I'm probably going to leave a lot of empty space in this one, simply because the hard points are just going to necessitate having empty space. And the other thing that we're going to need to be aware of is having a lot of buffer for damage, so we can soak up the damage without taking critical systems damage, such as to ammo barrels. Specifically to ammo barrels, honestly. Because that is always where things go awry, I find. Now, down here is where I would like to store the ammo. I'm not really sure how I should do that as yet. But I also want a bit of a hardpoint mount for a larger gun sitting around here, but because it's going to be raised up on this kind of level, whereas the guns on the sides will be on the deck level, I might be able to get away with this by having not a very tall ammo stockpile. I want a fairly wide area at the back for building my engines, because I want this to be a fast one. If If it's meant to engage using cannons, I want it to be able to get in close and engage very, very quickly. I don't want it dragging its feet. But down here, yeah, I think this is definitely going to be where we've got all of our ammo going on. So we'll do something like this. So let's get the really important parts in first, and then we can build everything else up around those. So I want to give a bit of a buffer from the sides and have something like this. Now, these are going to explode fairly big no matter what I do. So I'm not going to try too hard to avoid them. Like, I could have two distinct ammo stockpiles so that one explosion isn't going to destroy everything. But honestly, I feel that it's unnecessary. On a ship this small, anyway. If it was a much bigger ship, then it would make a little bit more sense. But there's no way really I can put my ammo barrels where there's going to be enough room around them that it won't matter if they explode. So I'm going to just put all my ammo in one place. Makes it nice and easy for me. Got 3,000 ammo. That's not great. But I could take from the plunderer and use its design. So we go back to metal. I want this very heavily guarded. So we'll put metal supports around that, like so. And the same on this side. Just to try and keep it a little bit more heavily defended. And then, of course, on the top as well. There we go. And probably, just for the sake of it, honestly, on this one, this is not necessary in any way, but I kind of like the idea of doing it. Do something like this. There we go. There we are. So that's my ammo stockpile. I'll probably also add little bits on the side here as well, just to flesh that out. But that's heavily fortified ammo stockpile there. And I think that will probably do us okay. Certainly it'll be better than many of my other ships in terms of protecting its ammo. We have got holes at the front. I could easily plug that up, actually thinking about it, and I probably should. So there we are. Now that's completely sealed off. Wonderful. Now I could add ammo reloaders on the outside, and I'm somewhat tempted to do that, or I could even add them on the top. Or, come to think of it, the amount of room that I've got over here makes a little bit more sense if I have an ammo processor or two just kind of tucked away along with the engine. I think, yeah, we'll have 4. That should make keeping my ammo going, even with a small stockpile like that, much easier. Even if I'm firing very big guns, very rapid fire guns continuously, those ammo reloaders should be able to give me a bit of engagement time, which I'm definitely going to need. So that's my weapon, my ammo stockpile there. Now I need to flesh out where we're going to be having the hard point for our main weapon. And we'll do that by grabbing another beam. We want to place it up the top. Now, my idea is that the weapon on top will kind of be the main gun. Kind of think along the terms of a tank, if you like. And although it's probably not going to be one of the more powerful weapons on the ship, it's going to have a bit of a focused role. I'm thinking perhaps anti-air. So we'd have a rapid fire turret on the very top that is designed specifically for taking on air threats, and then weapons on the sides for taking on ships. So we want a decent sized hard point, a decent sized hole cut out so that the turret can link down. So that's the main cannon's hard point. We don't need to be too snazzy with the way that we add shapes to this, but I'm kind of tempted, I suppose. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't. Yeah, I actually am tempted. I'm really tempted. So we're going to do that. We'll put one there and then one here. So there's our hard point for our main gun. It's very small. We're basically having one cube coming straight up here to a flat turret on top. So there's a very, even if you destroy the turret, there's not much room for you to be able to get shells down in here. It's going to basically be the exhaust port of the Death Star. Tiny, unless someone's using the Force, they're not going to be able to launch a torpedo down that hole and hit my ammo barrels. Hopefully. The AI may be capable of using the Force. This is undocumented, but I'm going to run under the assumption that it cannot. Now, the side guns, I think with the amount of room we've got here, we could probably afford to have... I think we can afford to have 4, that is 2 pairs of deck guns. So let's go ahead and get all of the deck actually fleshed out, at least where we're going to be building the deck guns. Right, so we've got a total of 7 weapon systems right now, and that's not including any that I could just basically bolt on. We've got 7 weapon hardpoints. Now, hardpoints, as far as I'm thinking, are probably more for cannons than anything else, since cannons specifically need the room below deck to be able to build all of their structure. Missiles, not so much. Silos, yes, but if you want like a turreted missile system, generally you build the entire turret on, the entire weapon system on the turret. Now, one thing we do have in here is room, unless we take this down significantly, and perhaps we should build for that possibility, but unless we do that, we've actually got an awful lot of room. Okay, now we've got a fairly good shape to this vessel now, and we've also got numerous different components down below. It is time, I feel, for us to start placing our laser defense system. Now, with the laser defense system, of course, we're going to need to take quite a lot of power to various different parts of the ship, and it's going to be a little bit of a logistical issue until I know what's in the ship. So I'm probably going to be using laser transceivers quite a lot so that there's basically non-colliding beams running the length of the ship to the various points where we're going to be stacking our laser defense laser emitters. The detectors aren't a problem. You can pretty much put them anywhere, and as long as you've got an AI that's connected to them, they'll work. Now, the multipurpose laser block will be situated here. And from there, then we'll branch out and use laser transceivers to carry the beam to where it needs to be. But we're actually going to build the laser coupler more or less just down the length of this vessel, along the spine, if you like. So we'll place all of the Q switches. We want this firing very frequently. We want it to be a pulse laser. And then we are going to need a lot of laser cavity. We'll take this down to around about... Here seems fine, and then we can taper it off using laser destabilizers and frequency doublers. Now, I'm not really sure how useful this is going to be. The destabilizers are definitely going to be useful, but I'm not sure what kind of armor a missile has, if it has any at all. So I think I'm going to just have 3. 3 of each. Now, I don't mind having these components at the front of the vessel, simply because it's not... If damage is done to that, it's not going to shut down the weapon system. It's just going to take away a fraction of its power out. Now, pulse laser damage 280, armor piercing of 4, range 3,173. I think that's good for a missile defense system myself. Now, where we're going to have these missile defense blocks is another matter entirely. I feel that we're going to need some up on this sort of top section here. Definitely some down the front. We're going to need a couple of little points where these laser defense kind of nodes. What I'm thinking is building nodes. We could put it about there. Yeah, see no particular reason not to. So we want glass blocks. I really do like this particular way of doing the laser transceivers, of just having them branch up like that. I really, really like that. We will add in a laser... Oh, no, we want a laser connector, not a coupler. There we go. And then we want a transceiver pointing straight down on both sides. And then down here, we want a transceiver pointing up. And then a laser connector beneath it. So we can do that. Then this. Though, honestly, it might actually be better if I'm going to do that. Instead of having 2... 2 transceivers gives us a little bit better, because if a single bit of damage damaged the middle and took everything out there, then we would lose both sides of this. What I was thinking is I could have just one laser transceiver carrying the beam straight up, but actually I don't mind having 2 because it offers a tiny bit of extra redundancy. Oops, what am I doing? There we go. We can have this then poking out like this all the way outside, and then we would have the missile defense components kind of just situated all around it like so, so it can pretty much hit something from any direction. So there we are. That's a little node for us, and I'm probably going to be building nodes like that everywhere that we're going to be having missile defense set up. So the next one would be another connector, then a transceiver there, and probably a transceiver down the bottom as well to carry the beam much further away. And then build this out and have a transceiver right here. There we go. Hopefully that connects. There we are. The beams are connecting. So these would technically now be active, connected to multi-purpose lasers. So we've got a laser defense system on the bridge. I would like one at the back as well, so we could set up a transceiver here. So we could just have this basically going the full length of the ship effectively. Everywhere you can imagine having a node to defend against missile attacks, we could have one built. Right at the back does seem like a good idea. Somewhere around here maybe. Have another node. I think that would be a good idea. So we'll build it up ready. There we are. Now we're not going to have glass going through here simply because this is effectively going to just be a node right there. So we don't necessarily want that. In fact, why don't I grab a... I'll make a prefab of this one. So we'll add this on down here. And then one right on the top. So there's another little missile defense node. So this is going to be very much a brawler, but the only thing it wants to be dealing with is cannon shells. It'll have shields to deal with that. We've got a very powerful engine that'll be able to support that. And it's got enough power in its engine to be able to support a comprehensive missile defense suite. So hopefully that will work out quite well for us. Okay, so we've got a fair amount of missile defense. We'll probably have a node coming out the side of the ship at some point as well. But I'm thinking that we're probably going to have fairly high metal cladding on this vessel just to give it a bit more defense. But before we do anything else, let me just check. How much is this vessel worth? 28,000 metal just from the engine, the ammo, and the laser. 1,845 glass, and we're also tipping over, but that's fine. It'll be fine once I've actually built it up properly. Quite a lot of resources, though. An awful lot of resources. Right. Can you please take us back into the sky? And I've been dumped in the drink. Well, scallywaggery. Oh, well. Now, much of the the deck is probably going to remain wooden for the most part, though I may well add some metal cladding underneath just to add a little bit of extra damage soaking. But I'm pretty happy with this as it stands. Though the bridge, I've kind of got this feeling that I should make the bridge a little bit further forward because we've got a lot of space in this. But on the whole, I'm fairly happy with the amount of damage this would probably be able to soak up because of the amount of empty room that it's got. Right then, so we've extended out this little section out here. This is going to be the bridge section over here. But the last couple of things that we need to actually add on in terms of functional components, and then I can actually shape the ship around the actual working components inside, would be an AI. Now, I'm thinking of having the AI sheltered in this section at the back that the bridge isn't directly going to access. So let's start placing down some of the functional components of the bridge. We're going to be taking away this pillar. It's not going to be there. That will be connected in a different way. Let's see if I can just neatly connect that over here, perhaps. Yes, I can. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so that will be at the top there, but the bridge will be a lower tier down, just down here. And somewhere in here, We'll probably have a wall of glass in the front. I'm thinking, yeah, something like that. We'll actually have the bridge be a bit more of a square shape. We'll have a wall of glass up front. Probably add in a control. So we want a chair there, and then a vehicle control. I actually prefer the vehicle controller over more or less any of the other controllers. I could add in a fire control computer, but I'm not actually sure I want one. If I'm perfectly honest, I don't. I just flat out don't want a fire control computer. It's just going to encourage me to take control of things that I don't want to be controlling. Alright, back here then, we would have the main AI mainframe for the whole vessel. We want a card slot left and right. This one, I'm thinking we'll have probably independent AIs controlling each of the weapon systems. Certainly the main ones will have their own AI. I don't want this AI really worrying about that. So all this really needs is a naval AI. And unfortunately, we need to take away the mirror line as well. I always forget that. We would probably want propulsion balancing as well. Is there anything else we would really want? A patrol card might be nice, actually. So we'll add one more of these just so we can have a patrol card. And there we go. That's this vessel's entire AI there for controlling the actual ship itself. The individual points where I'll have missile detection, that's another thing we do need to consider. But that is going to happen once I've built the hull, because I don't know what's going to be blocking what yet. So as far as functional components, we're almost finished. Out the back, I suppose we could just add in the propellers, or at least some of the propellers, understanding that we're probably going to need to change their position drastically once the ship is built up. And this wood here is just so I can get an idea of where the propellers are going to be. We're basically making a wall for me to attach the propellers to, and then I'll be quite drastically improving the protection of this area by making it metal, I imagine. Something like this, I think, would do. So we've got a nice big wall for propellers back there. Probably want to build it out a little bit, if for no other reason than to be able to fit a rudder. Something like that. So we want a boat rudder about there. Now, my thinking with this is we will probably have propellers also helping to steer the boat. But I always like having a rudder. I just don't feel that it's right if you don't. Have that there, then go back to wooden blocks just to shape this out just a tad. Something quite like this, I feel, would be suitable. Yes, that gives it a nice shape up there. Now, as for propellers, we want this ship to be very, very, very fast. The reason for that is that this needs to be able to get close distance with opposing ships super, super quickly. It's a brawler, so it needs to be able to close that gap. Otherwise, it's operating at a massive disadvantage. I think having 12 huge propellers is going to give it enough oomph in the forward-facing direction that I'm not going to have to really worry about too much else. And that actually all fits in quite nicely. Now, the only thing with this, it has no pontoons to help it stabilize. I could add those, and we'll have to see if it's stable before I try to add that, because right now I think the shape is pretty good without. It's a stubby little vessel, and I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to be doing with the main guns that's going to play to that. I think I'm fairly happy with the functional components, though, so it's time for me now to flesh out the ship. Now, this is going to take me a long while, so I will bring you back when it's done. And welcome back. I have done a lot of work. This took me an inordinate amount of time. We're talking over an hour, maybe closer to 2, to get all of this done. But I'm actually fairly happy with it. The main kind of guiding principle behind this build was to have a tanky brawler. Something that would get in, or at least that's the idea that I have for the weapons loadout of the first one, is that it's going to be a gunship. This is something that people have asked for a lot. So I had to think, I was like, well, maybe a main AA gun on top with 1 or 2 pairs of heavy firing weapons on either, along the side. So it would be a primarily broadside type vessel. But what we've got is capable of, well, it's got more weapon slots than I originally envisioned, and room for a 8th weapon over here, possibly a missile system. We've got a lot of defense, but given that one of the primary ideas behind this build was to make something that would be really, really quite tanky, I thought, well, what else have I had experience with that's tanky? Castles. Let's make a floating castle. So here we are. You'll notice the crenellations kind of aspect and the banners sort of thing going on, the pennants streaming from the towers, and a very, very bold kind of bloody, I'm going to mess you up front there, which I'm kind of proud of, actually, because this just kind of evolved out of nothing. I was finishing off the rounding of the front with normal black metal, and then I was kind of building it all towards the front from the back and the sides, and I ended up with this gap that just kind of looked just like a blade sticking out from the bottom of the ship, just rising straight up. So I thought, okay, I'll actually build that. Obviously, it isn't actually going to function as much as a blade, but then I thought, I'll add some rams, and then that evolved into those rams and even the side rams around the pennants. But we've got crenellations around where the hard points are going to be, and I've built up the actual spot, the laser defense nodes, and more crenellations and ramparts around it, all very spiky, very castle-y in many ways. Now, one of the last things that I wanted to add before we actually sign off and say, right, this hull is good, is the actual missile defense system. So we're going to do that now, and I need to turn off the color. So what I was thinking with that is to have something along these lines. We'll also unlock that. So there. We'll have separate AIs on all these sides. Actually, I need to drop the mirror line down now that I've finished talking. And then an AI, where are you? Missile warner system pointing straight up. So 3 down here. Now these ones are pointing straight up, so they'll only really see things that are coming from the top, but that's what I want from those ones. The other points that we were going to have over here are going to deal with things a little bit differently. Now, we want an AI mainframe, but this, I guess it doesn't really matter where exactly it sits, but we want a conduit right there. And then from the conduit, we want the missile warner system. One there. If we lock it in, or is the conduit the wrong thing, possibly? Oh no, we want the connector. Sorry. There we go. Want a AI connector, then the missile warner systems built off of that. So again, basically a missile warner node. This should have perfect line of sight around this entire side of this vessel. That one around this entire side of the vessel. And finally, just because I don't want to be snuck up on by anything, we're going to have one last node. In fact, I'm thinking we'll actually make this into a prefab just to save a little bit of time. Drill, you know what? I'm never going to use you, so because I'll just build my own when I want one. Length 2, height 3. That should be good. Now unlock it. And something more or less like, no, that was wrong. Oops, there we go. Get in there. That's what we wanted. Now, I'll use that in just a moment. I'm not going to rename it. I probably should, but I'm being lazy. There we go. And then back down to the prefabs. Drill. And drill needs to sit there. There we go. Now, I'm not sure if there's an easy way for me to tell if these are connected. No, it doesn't appear so. That is a bit of a shame. I'm going to assume that they are for now, but I'm sure someone in the comments will let me know before we actually put this into effect that I've done something wrong. Now, we've got room down there for a 9th weapon system. If I really want to, I can place a weapon here. But honestly, I'm kind of happy with the idea of having a turreted missile system on the top of the bridge. But time to give you a brief tour. This is the bridge. Here we are with our little bridge there. This controls our water pumps. Let me bring that up. So currently, if it's got any health, the pumps are all set to 5 because I've designed this ship the way I quite often design ships, and that is with redundancy and bulkheads effectively, like you would a normal ship. There are many, many different compartments. And if damage, like for example, a submarine, if damage was done to one part of the ship, then they could literally isolate that component, and you'd only lose the buoyancy that was represented by that small part and the functionality of that small part. Is this connected to mainframe? Is this connected to mainframe? Oh, fantastic. I just didn't have the UI open. Silly me. Right. So we've got our lasers over here. Down there, we have got little compartments for these two weapon systems. Over here, this one's got its own dedicated compartment. Again, another air pump. You'll notice that there's inner cladding of wood, just for the sake of it, really. There's a lot of compartmentalization below deck. A lot of it. I'm really not overstating that enough. But if we go through here, we have got the AI. Very simple little room, just the AI. The door is colored blue, kind of like, you know, electronics. I'll need to set up the various settings for that, but these will all be dictated by the weapon loader I give it. Because if it's primarily a missile ship, then it's going to want to react very differently than if it were a gunship. And depending on the type of guns I put on it, that'll all come down to how I set up the weapon loader. But I'll go back to the chair because the rest I think it'll be easier to show you with the camera. In here we have again another compartment. This is the laser. These are the lasers going back to the rear defenses. Ooh, I've missed a bit there. That's not good. Let me fix that right up. Color picker. There we go. We will also have a look at the astronomical cost in a moment. But there we are. Right, so this is the little compartment down here, and again, below deck is a lot of wood. Honestly, I'm not going out of my way to try and keep it all metal inside. We've got air pumps in here, another compartment. Unfortunately, you can hear it, but it isn't actually flooded. It's just the game being a bit derpy. We've got down below more air pumped compartments. Same over here. This is the ammo area. Got a little air pumps over there. So that's the ammo stockpile. It's got two compartments either side. And again, we're using wood primarily inside. Metal for the outer armor. Metal where it's very important to add a little bit of extra protection. But generally inside the compartments are split up using wood. And then we've got the laser system and the engine in here. Now this section does not have an air pump by the looks of it. That is interesting. Ah, yes. I've completely forgotten to compartmentalize the very end. I was completely distracted by doing the metal. I'll do that off screen. But I'll give you just a look at how I've done the rest. There are lots of little tiny compartments with their own little air pumps in them. Just so that, again, if damage is done to this vessel, then it's not going to significantly impact its buoyancy, because if you break open a small part, I'm only going to lose the buoyancy for that tiny little part because there are so many compartments inside. I will have to fix all of this up and put an air pump in the engine area as well, of course, to because that's actually quite a large area not to have any sort of air pump going on. But probably have like 3 or 4 other compartments out there. But you'll also notice, actually, I did move the ammo fabricators to the front of the engine rather than to the side, so that I could keep everything compartmentalized a little bit more tidily along there. But that's it. All we have to do now is add in the weapon system, and I really hadn't noticed that is so heavily flooded, which is interesting, really. But despite that, the maximum speed of this vessel is actually pretty good. I did have to cut back some of the propellers because they were below the center of mass and were causing this to basically try to fly. But it's got a top speed of 11. Not bad for such a chunky ship, I think. This should be able to get into conflict very, very well. Down here, we've got just a couple of little propellers just to help me steer, because it is a very big boat. So This is how quickly we can turn. It's not very fast when it's moving at top speed, so probably want to decelerate before turning, obviously. But on the whole, yeah, not too bad. And currently it's sitting in the water with the buoyancy set to 0.5. I could probably increase that to 0.6 just to get it a little bit higher out of the water. But that does start to impact on the propellers, but you can see the pennants a little bit better that way. But there we are. Now, as always, looking for some name suggestions. Very heavily defended. This is primarily a tanky build. This is meant to get out there and be able to fight for a long time before it goes down. I will be adding repair bots off camera, as well as compartmentalizing the front, the nose of the vessel. But you can assume that it's going to have quite a lot of staying power. So names that kind of go along those lines. Any sort of mythological creature that was extremely well known for being survival, for having quite a lot of resilience, for being able to fight for a long time. Anything along those lines. Any moving castles in mythology, I wouldn't really know. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but anything like that would definitely be a strong contender for the name of this vessel. Now, as I've mentioned numerous times, when we get to the campaign, I will be fitting this out with cannon systems primarily, possibly a missile system on the bridge, but in the future, I might have a few of these with different loadouts. But the very last thing we need to do before we go anywhere is to check how much this costs. It costs a lot. It costs an awful lot. 160,000 metal, 14,000 oil, 32,000 scrap, 79,000 natural, and 2,555 crystal. Now that'll obviously be adjusted when it's got weapon systems on. At the moment, completely unarmed, 600,000 RP. Now, to give you a comparison of that, if we go into load vehicle and go to the plunderer, you'll see that the plunderer is a little bit more metal expensive, a little bit more. On the whole, it's much more expensive than this vessel. So, although the metal component is relatively close, on the whole, I feel that considering I'm building this basically to be something that can stand up against the plunderer, I'm not too sad about how much it costs. Honestly, I think it's coming in at a decent price, all things told. I might add some torpedo systems to this, perhaps, and if I do, they'll probably be launched from the very bottom there. I've kind of left that area sort of conspicuously unshaped compared to the rest of it, because I'm really not sure what I might do. But again, that'll be something I'll add in the campaign if I decide to give this some sort of torpedo capability. And honestly, I think maybe I should. There are compartments down here that have been specifically left alone for that reason. These compartments down here can easily house a torpedo system. But that is going to be it from this design video. I hope you like what we've ended up with. It has taken me an awful lot of time. I would really appreciate any feedback, any kind of obvious glaring mistakes you notice that I've made. If you could comment now, it would save me a lot of heartache when it comes time to build this in the campaign. Or just if you want to offer any future suggestions for builds, then by all means, I welcome the feedback. But that is it from me. So until next time we meet, do take care.